unless he goes out and gets a hat-trick against Norwich this week, I think people will start to lose the faith and maybe getting him out of the team. He's quite pricey, so he's a big gamble to take, especially at this stage in the season.
Yeah, and I mean, surely he's going to go in the summer. And you have said it before, MVD, if Arsenal don't come back and have a good run, I mean, they're sitting in 10th position.
Yeah, it
they're
is.
away to Wolves, and then they've got Leicester at home, and then, as Pell has said there, they're then away against Spurs. I mean, what a tough next three fixtures. I mean, it's bad signs for Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't see them really breaking any ground. I think they've got a ride off this season. Arteta's going to be starting to build his squad. Obviously, you know, we're talking about Ozil before as well. He's kind of non-existent now.
Yeah.
But Arteta's going to have one eye on next season. He needs to sort that defence out and then just build a team around the creativity that he wants and a bit more, you know, they need to be more solid in midfield as well. It's not just their defence. They really need to get hold of the ball and just make the most of their attacking prowess, because they do have attacking players in their team. It's just getting the most out of them.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Pellis, for that insight. I think some really good call-outs there. West Ham and City with favourable fixtures over these next 3 game weeks. Arsenal less so. Definitely very good calls because they're winnable games for West Ham in these next 3, definite winnables for City. NVD, likewise to what Pellis has just called out, is there any teams that you have been looking at or you feel have got a good chance over these next 3 game weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned Wolves when Pellis was talking about Arsenal. You know, they're at home for the next game week against Arsenal. Yeah, been playing well. We've already spoken about Jimenez, their defence, Traore as well. So, you know, I think they'll crack on, to be honest, against Arsenal, who seem pretty toothless, unfortunately. So I think, you know, they've got Arsenal, and then they're away to Sheffield United in game week 34, which isn't always kind of an easy place to go. But I think Sheffield United are having a bit of a, you know, they're wavering a little bit. So probably a good time, if any, actually to kind of play them at home. And then I guess maybe a tougher fixture, but they're back home in game week 35 is against Everton. So I guess it depends on Everton's next 2 games on how they play. I think that's probably their toughest, if I'm perfectly honest, out there, the next 3 games. But really, on paper, I still feel they're all winnable, and that's going to be massive as, you know, they look to push into the top 4. Yeah. So yeah, them and Man United are really pushing Chelsea, to be honest, in that top four position. So yeah, I think Wolves have got pretty favourable fixtures. Apart from that, I think kind of my beloved Liverpool, yeah, we may start to see players being rotated a little bit more as we look to kind of preserve either injuries as well as kind of fitness, and try and give some of the young lads who are kind of on the periphery, who've played some games but need a couple of more appearances to get league winners medals. The next game week, they play Villa. Obviously, Villa, you know, fighting to stay in the Premier League, but, you know, it's at home for whatever that's worth. It's at Anfield that they go to, so I think it's going to be difficult, if I'm perfectly honest. And, you know, I think Liverpool want to see the season out in style. They've still got records that they want to win as well, in terms of kind of, you know, not losing, most points at Anfield, most points overall. In terms of securing a league championship. So, yeah, I think all still to play for. Liverpool then away at Brighton in game week 34. Brighton, to be fair, apart from the game against Manchester United, have looked decent in their first 2 games back. So, you know, maybe an interesting game. Again, you know, they're fighting, but I would still consider that favourable for Liverpool. And then game week 35, they're back at Anfield against Burnley, and you saw them getting dismantled by Man City a couple of game weeks ago with their 5-0 defeat. So I think kind of Liverpool can very much do the same. So yeah, I think kind of Liverpool have got favourable fixtures over the next couple of game weeks.
And then one thing you mentioned there is fringe players perhaps coming in. Are we looking at, like, now the pressure's off? Is Minamino going to be perhaps a bit more, you know, might not feel pressured? Yeah,
that's right. So I think kind of, you know, for that front 3, you know, we may start to see the likes of Salah and Mane potentially get rested, although, you know, I'm sure they're going to want to play because, you know, I think both, more so Salah, have still got their hat in the ring for the Golden Boot, and I'm sure they're going to want to retain their Golden Boot that they jointly got last season. But you have got kind of Minamino on the fringes. You've got young Harvey Elliott, who's got a couple of more appearances and who looks assured every time he plays for such a young lad as well. You've got old Nico Williams, who's at right back, so we might start seeing him play more games in lieu of Alexander-Arnold potentially. So yeah, definitely kind of some areas of the pitch where you're going to start to see some of the young lads, Curtis Jones as well, come in midfield as well.
Something about Liverpool I have to mention, just as you were talking there, MVD, I think this whole Liverpool conundrum about are they going to rest players or are they going to go for the break the records, and Klopp has been consistent. I know now they've won the league it might be different, but he has been consistent even at times when they were in the Champions League, they were battling a lot of games. He's still stuck with a pretty solid, not too much rotation. He just stuck with it because he knew players could handle it. I think this could be really decisive in FPL leagues, because do you stick or twist with Liverpool players? Because if you go out and use your wild card right now, take out Salah or Mane or Alexander-Arnold or Robertson, you could massively trip yourself up, because those who have kept with this run of fixtures, these next 3 games, you take them out and then they go and all bang in a load of goals because they're just scoring for fun. They've won the league. They might play even better because there's no pressure.
And the dangerous thing, right, is the dangerous thing is, they might not play the whole game, but they might just come on after 20 minutes to go when the other team's knackered, and it's very hard. I hear you completely. I do think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but it's a good point, very good point. I don't think you risk getting rid of your genuine quality players. You've got to keep the quality, and then you perhaps bed in 1 or 2 that could be fringes. Your call of Phil Foden for me is a great one, because he has been playing, but like someone like Minamino, do you really want to be banking on him over Salah? You want to give it maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't, to be honest. I think he's there's those that are coming in, those fringe players coming in for Liverpool, I don't think are going to set the league alight. No disrespect to them. I don't think they're going to get you massive amount of points. Maybe if they start a defender, get a clean sheet, but, nothing that you're prepared to really kind of ship out some of your big players for. Also, you've got to think about it, and this may be for all teams, maybe apart from those that are still involved in the FA Cup and Champions League, is that actually clubs may use this, as an expedited or bringing forward their pre-season, right? So in which case, actually, they're going to probably still play their full-strength teams just to kind of build their fitness up, build their fitness back up, maintain their fitness, carry it in through to the pre-season, because we don't know how long or short it's going to be, and then bang, straight in back into the new season. So, I think we second-guess Moot shipping out, as you guys have said, some of your big players at your peril.
Got to keep the quality, and Pedro's completely right to bring it up. I feel personally you keep the quality in there, you perhaps push in players that, for me, I feel like you've got to look at the teams that have got something to play for. And the teams I'm sort of touching upon for the next 3 game weeks are all teams with something to play for: United, Chelsea and Leicester. Now, United have got very favourable fixtures, in my opinion. I'd be disappointed if we don't take 9 points here. Starting with a game against Bournemouth, I believe is our next match, at Old Trafford on the 4th of July. Then we go to Villa, and then our game week 35 is at home against Southampton. For me, Manchester United, they want to get in the top 4. Got to win all of those 3 games. Playing really well at the moment. Not going to probably rest players. Fernandes is going to be key to winning those 3 games. Pogba's come back in and he's looked decent. Rashford's playing really well. Martial didn't do as much today, but we saw him get a hat-trick the other day. He's playing very well. Greenwood, I called him out earlier, cheap option. So perhaps you look at 3 players from Manchester United, especially over this next period, and Greenwood could be one of the cheap ones out of the 3 if you need to save a bit of money somewhere. And you bed that in with players, for me, for Chelsea. I think Chelsea have looked very good since they've come back. 3 very favourable fixtures again. Watford in game week 33 at Stamford Bridge. Then they go to Palace, an away game there. Still, a London derby, something they'll want to win. And they need to win, right? They need to be in the top 4. This is important to these teams. Then it's Sheffield United for Chelsea. And I feel like Pulisic has been playing very well for Chelsea since they've come back. He scored a couple of goals. He's been looking sharp, and he's definitely there or thereabouts. Pellers has already touched upon, I believe it was Wolves, or it may well have been you, NVD, that touched upon Wolves. But again, something to play for. Got to get that top 4 spot. So, you could be looking at Jimenez, Traore quite rightly, and maybe someone in defence. That is what you've got to be doing here, and even Spurs to a degree, looking at the teams that have got something to play for. And I'm going to completely contradict everything I've said there, because the one team that does have something to play for as well, in my opinion, but are gonna mess it up, are Leicester. Yeah. For me, Leicester have not been playing well even before COVID. They have not shown the sort of form that got them where they were. If you look at their last 5 games, lost 2, won 1, drawn 2. Not at all form of someone that's going to remain in the top 4. And they've got Palace, they've then got Arsenal, away to Arsenal. Fine, Arsenal not playing that well, but I could see Leicester struggling there. And then Bournemouth, and we already saw Leicester drew 1-1 with Watford. They don't seem to be able to buy a goal at the moment, Leicester. And for me, that's the team to avoid. All of those other teams I've mentioned in the top 4, that's where I'd be looking at for these next 3 game weeks. And I'd probably, arguably go 2 or 3 players from each of those, with the quality still from Liverpool and Man City sort of fostered in there. So that's what I'd be looking at. Sort of grimacing at me, envy, dear. You like, yeah.
No.
Even 7th.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think the only, a potential differential, and we haven't got a captain on the show today, unfortunately, is I was just thinking about, I was looking at the league table and I just saw Tottenham. Tottenham are what? I think they're probably like, about 7 points shy or something of like Man U and Wolves. And the other thing is that do you hedge do you kind of put a bit of money on Kane and Son? Does Mourinho say, okay, right, look, we're not going to get into Champions League this season. Let's just see what we can do. Let the team, does he finally kind of unleash the team to just see how they're going to organically play? And that might suit people like, Son, Ali, Kane.
And if he takes the pressure off of those players, they may well start performing. And they're not that far off, They're only, got game in hand, and then they'd be 6 points off of a Champions League spot. Still could be doable. So, yeah, Spurs definitely a good shout as well.
I think Son is a good shout. He's kind of been there or thereabouts. He's looked good the last couple of games. West Ham, he was a bright spark. He's got a lot of pace, and I can see Son picking up with that Bergwijn as well. I know a few people in the team since that goal against Man United. It was a great goal, but yeah, Son I think is a solid shout. They've got, like you say, Everton, Bournemouth, and Arsenal. So that's a good run.
Yes,
I would be surprised with no Aguero, no Aubameyang. Disappointing again unless he gets a hat trick against Norwich tomorrow. But essentially, people are going to be looking elsewhere to spend their money, because you're going to have extra left in the bank with these big players, perhaps either being rested or being out of the game.
And Pellers, to that point, a question I wanted to ask you, I've just reeled off teams with something that got something to play for. And the reason I come to you with this question is I don't really look that far down the league, but as a West Ham fan, you'll probably know more what it's like down there. Grappling for your lives.
I do.
But over these next 3 weeks, mate, are there players down there for any of those teams, be it Watford, yourself, the Hammers, Bournemouth, Villa, Norwich? They've perhaps got something to play for, these teams, because they don't want to get relegated. So any players we should perhaps be looking at, 1 or 2, that are worth getting in there?
Well, I've got to say, out of all the teams, the ones who look the best out of those bottom teams is Watford. This manager, since he's come in, has just been solid, right? All right, they haven't picked up amazing results since they come back, but as a team, they look like they just gel better. They create more chances. The rest of them, Aston Villa have struggled. I've gotten rid of Grealish. I don't see him picking up tons towards the end of the season. They're struggling up front, Villa. They're struggling for like a target man or someone to kind of feed off of. Grealish is trying to be the main man, and he is playing well really for Villa, but just the rest of the team are kind of letting them down. West Ham, as I kind of called out, Jarrod Bowen. I think if you're going to put a bet on any player to do well for West Ham, it's going to be Bowen. The one I fear for is Bournemouth. Ryan Fraser, we all know, in the headlines, he's refused to sign a contract. He's going to be exiting out of Bournemouth, and he won't play another game for Bournemouth. He's kind of been completely dropped, which rightly so. If you're fighting relegation, you want your players playing, but that's
going to hurt. Be there, players that want to be there.
He's been one of the most distant, every time I've seen him, I remember a few games seeing him live at West Ham. He was always their best player.
And he was a staple last season for fantasy as well. He was a good player for fantasy.
He was a solid player for the last years. Yeah, he was always pretty cheap and always got an assist or a goal. He was always in amongst it. So without him, they've got a couple of injuries as well, Bournemouth. So I do worry for them. The only thing that they've got going for them, they do still have, the couple of strikers. They've got a knock. Callum Wilson